Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to the Gridiron Genius. In today's video, I'm going over my top 28 running backs going into the 2025 season. In the last video, I went over my top 32 quarterbacks, so go check that out if you want to. Before the season starts, I'm going to be dropping my wide receiver and tight end rankings, so subscribe if you want to see those. But I'll just give you guys a second to look at the list. But let's just jump right into the S tier. And the first guy I have on this list is Bijan Robinson. This is Penix's first full year starting, so I expect Bijan to get a heavy workload. He really broke out last year, finishing as the RB3 and showed everyone why he was a number 8 pick. He's really the jack of all trades used in the running and passing game, and the Falcons have one of the easiest strength of schedules for running backs. And this leads us into the second guy on the list, Saquon Barkley. He finishes the RB2 last year, but we all know he should have been the RB1. He sat out the final week and Gibbs had a 40-point week, and he easily would have been the RB1 if he played. What scares me is he gets so many touches, so his chances of getting injured are higher. And the Eagles' O-line has changed and gotten injured, so his protection might be a little worse. And the Eagles might be in closer games where they need to pass more, so they can't rely on him as much. But he's still going to be a great option if you have him. And the third guy I have on this list is Jahmyr Gibbs. He's still in a split backfield with David Montgomery, but as time has went on, more snaps keep going to him. He also had 16 touchdowns last year, and I don't know if he's going to repeat that. And also, the Lions lost Ben Johnson, but I feel like this will hurt the passing more than the run. But Gibbs was one of the most efficient runners last year, averaging 5.6 yards per carry, and finishing as the RB1 in a split backfield is basically unheard of. He also had more touchdowns than Bijan on less attempts. But this leads us to the fourth guy on the list, who's probably the most controversial, Christian McCaffrey. We all know he's a league winner when healthy, and he's healthy right now. I know a lot of people probably want to move him down since the Brian Robinson trade, but I only have the helping CMC. This boosts his chance of staying healthy, and he's still going to be used in the passing game. Obviously, Robinson Jr. will take some touchdowns from him, and I might have CMC moving down in my overall rankings, but in my running back rankings, he basically stays the same. This just means you're going to get CMC at a better discount, and if you're the 49ers, you need to use your best player in your offense. Not to mention, the 49ers have one of the easiest schedules in the whole entire NFL, and with the loss of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk's probably not going to come back till week 6, and also Juwan Jennings is dealing with an injury, they'll rely on CMC to win games. But that wraps up the S tier, and that moves us on to the A tier, and the first guy I have in this list is Ashton Jeanty. One of the Raiders' biggest weaknesses outside of quarterback was running back. You don't draft a running back 6 overall not to use him, and with this new Pete Carroll-led offense, they'll rely on Jeanty. Jeanty has elite balance, explosiveness, and can also be used in the passing game, and I expect a heavy workload for him. If Geno also starts to play bad, I feel like they're really going to rely on Jeanty, but don't be surprised if he has a rookie season like Bijan. He just needs a year to adjust to the NFL, but I think he'll be amazing. We already seen him in the preseason. He won Offensive Player of the Year for the preseason, and I expect that to carry over into the season. I'm not worried about Jeanty, and I feel very happy if I have him on any of my teams. And this takes us into the next guy, Devon Achane. I know there was kind of an injury scare there, but reports coming out today saying he's going to play in week 1. Last season when Tua played, this guy was like a top 3-4 running back, and he just gets so many points in the check down. He's an elite PPR option, and I feel really good if you have him on your team. He's one of the only Dolphins players I'm actually taking in any of my drafts, and you probably got him at a really good discount if you drafted him after his injury. And that takes us to one of the most reliable running backs over the last few years. It feels like everyone's just waiting for Father Time to catch up to Derek, and it just never happens. But he's just so elite when he plays. But what really knocks him down for me is the games he struggled, he really struggled. He only got like 10 points. But the games he boomed, he got like 30. You just don't know what you're going to get every week. I know he finishes the RB4, but I just don't want that inconsistency on my team. I mean, no offense to Derrick Henry. He's still an amazing RB1, RB2. He did get 16 touchdowns last year. I mean, once he's in the red zone, that's almost an automatic touchdown. But I'd probably rather have the next guy, Chase Brown, a little bit over him on my fantasy team just because I can get him at a slighter discount. He was the RB10 last year and didn't get a snap share over 60% till week 6. Not to mention he was also injured the last game of the season, so now he's in the ideal situation and he's set up for success. This Bengals offense is basically still the exact same, and the Bengals defense is still horrible. Chase Brown will be used in the passing game and also on the ground, so I'm easily expecting a top 8 finish. But that moves us into the B tier. These guys in the B tier I have more as RB2 range, but I would still feel very happy if any of these guys were on my team, and that leads us into Bucky Irving, who was a waiver wire pickup of last season. He didn't start out snapping Rachaad White till around week 13, but White sadly still is there for Bucky, so still a split backfield. White gets a lot of the receiving work, so that does take away from Bucky's ceiling, but that wide receiver room is pretty crowded with Mbuko, Mike Evans, and Godwin, and you don't have all those guys just not to use them. I also think that Baker could regress a little bit, and that could hurt Bucky, but overall he should be a solid RB2, and I think he'll get way more than 8 touchdowns. I don't know why these projections are that low. I have him finishing around 10. But that leads us into a guy who used to be the RB1 a few seasons ago. I feel a lot more happy about JT now that Daniel Jones is a starter, because Richardson's a running quarterback, so they'll obviously take away attempts from Jonathan Taylor. But why I don't have him in the A tier is the majority of his points came from the second half of last season, which is not a good sign for consistency. Also, the Colts are probably not going to be very good at football, so they might not have the chance to run the ball a lot. And they also drafted a tight end 14th overall in this year's draft, so they're going to have to use him. And that's a similar reason why I have Josh Jacobs here. He finishes the RB6, and I still think he's going to be a fantastic running back. But that wide receiver room is pretty crowded. But they are dealing with injuries, which could definitely make Jacobs a better runner in the first few weeks. But once Jalen Reed is playing football, that might bump down Josh Jacobs. It was pretty cool to see him get his first passing touchdown. And he finished the year last year with 15 touchdowns. But we know how hard that division is, and the Packers might not be in games where they can pass. And here's another guy who I'm just not as high on as everyone else. Kyren has dealt with injuries before, and last season I know he didn't. The first half of the season, Kyren was great. He was getting a touchdown basically almost every game. I know they just re-signed him and they believe in him, but they just brought in Devontae Adams, so that just turned into one of the best receiving corps in the entire NFL. Not to mention Stafford's dealing with that back injury, so let's say he gets out for an extended period of time. That could really hurt Kyren's stock. But that brings us into the first rookie on this list, Amarian Hampton. The Chargers are going to stay run heavy this year, and we all seen how J.K. Dobbins was last year, getting 9 rushing touchdowns. Before I filmed this, I had Hampton one spot earlier, but then Najee Harris was activated onto the 53-man roster, and that bumped him down a spot just because you don't sign a player there just not to use them. But I really expect Hampton to be used well. And let's say one of their receivers goes down like Ladd McConkey, who has a history of injuries in college. This will really benefit Hampton. And that wraps up the B tier. And we're going to go check out the C tier. And this is the tier where guys start to get a little more risky. I like these guys more as flexes, but they're still pretty good. And the first guy who's still pretty good is James Cook. The only thing about him is he was only the RB8 and he averaged a touchdown a game. He also had over 1,000 yards. He's just not really utilizing the passing offense as much as I would like. The Bills are still going to be a great offense, and we all know that Josh Allen is so good without having a wide receiver 1. But just James Cook to me does not have that ceiling the other guys have, so that's why he's in the C tier. And the next guy on the list almost is the exact opposite of James Cook. He does have that receiving ceiling, he just doesn't have a good offense. I could realistically see that Saints team finishing with 3 wins, so this definitely could take a hit on his touchdown cap. I can almost guarantee that Tyler Shuck will also get a chance this season, so you're going to be switching out quarterbacks, and that's not going to be a pretty sight. But Elvin will still be used in the passing game and get little checkdowns, which will probably give you 14-15 points a game. He's also 30 years old and did get injured last year and still has that chance to this season. But speaking about a guy who could get injured, there's none other than Kenneth Walker. When this guy plays, he's elite. Now that Sam Darnold's in Seattle, they're going to make this offense easy on him. They've already said they're going to lean the run, and K9 can be used in the passing game too. This is Walker's contract year, so he's going to have to ball out this season, and he's one of my favorite value options. He just needs to stay healthy. My advice, if you're going to take Walker, take Charbonnet just so you have that nice little handcuff. And that leads us into another guy who got injured last year, Chuba Hubbard. He finishes the RB14 last year and got injured in one of the last weeks of the season. This offense has now got a true wide receiver 1 in Ted McMillan, and the Panthers just re-signed Hubbard to a 4-year deal, which means they trust him. He's gonna be used in this offense, and I wouldn't be shocked if he outperforms his projected touchdowns. And that leads us into Trayvon Henderson. This is a backfield that can easily be taken over. At Ohio State, this guy fumbled 0 times, and his first touch in the NFL, he ran it back for a touchdown. We all know Ramondre is not what he once was, but it still is a split backfield, and Henderson's a rookie, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a lighter workload this year. But I'm expecting Drake May to take a step up, and he also got a true wide receiver 1 now in Diggs. So the Pats are definitely a sleeper of a team. But that takes us into our next running back, James Conner. I know a lot of people probably want him to be higher, as he finishes the RB11 last year, but last year was the only year in his career he's been fully healthy. When he plays, he's good, but will he stay fully healthy 2 years in a row? I'm not sure. Kyler's also a scrambling quarterback, so it does also take away from Conner in that aspect, but Conner still is a 3-down back, and he's also using the passing game. Not to mention Marvin Harrison Jr. is still Kyler's number 1 target, and outside of him, there's really no one. And that takes us to the last guy of the C tier, Breece Hall. He really burned everyone if you picked him in the first 2 rounds last year. I'm just really not as high on him as I once was. The Jets have already came out and said that backfield's going to be used like a 1A and 1B with him and Braylon Allen. And we all know how much Justin Fields loves to run. As we've seen in the preseason game versus the Packers, he even got a rushing touchdown. Hall's also sustained major injuries in his career before, and I'm not exactly sure how much Fields is going to be able to move the ball down the field. So Hall's going to be probably pretty limited on goal line attempts. And that takes us into the D tier. These guys I'm mostly not drafting, or at least not yet. The first guy I have on this list is DeAndre Swift. I've just never been too high on Swift. I know a lot of people want to rate him a lot higher now than he should be, just because of the addition of Ben Johnson, but people act like he was good under Ben Johnson. Just because you're reuniting with an old coach really doesn't necessarily mean anything. I obviously think this Bears offense will improve, so that will help Swift, but I expect him just to be a little better, maybe get a few more touchdowns. But the Bears just has so many weapons in their offense, like Luther Burton, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Colson Loveland. So I'm not expecting anything too special out of DeAndre Swift. But here's a guy who's definitely bumped up my rankings, Tony Pollard. Ever since the Tajay Spears injuries happened, Tony Pollard has been bumping up my list. Even though the Titans may not be that good under rookie Cam Ward, Tony Pollard will definitely benefit in this offense. There's not too many weapons in the offense outside of Calvin Ridley, so Tony Pollard might need to be a 3-down back. He still might not get that many touchdowns, but I guarantee Tony Pollard will give you a consistent like 13 points a game. So that's still not bad. But here's an interesting guy, David Montgomery. He got 12 touchdowns last year. 12. I have a feeling that Gibbs might take a little more touchdowns this year. I just think that Lions offense is going to be worse in general, and Montgomery is going to regress in the touchdown area. And here's another guy who's in a split backfield behind J.K. Dobbins. Who knows when he'll get the majority of the snaps, but it might not be this season. The Broncos will definitely try to utilize this guy, but I don't know when. That Broncos offense is just going to be really good in general, so that will benefit Harvey, especially if they can get some nice leads in games. But I just really don't know if this is the year we should be drafting this guy yet. I just like everything about him as a player. It's just a situation at the moment I'm just not a fan of. And I'm just really not a fan of this guy either. He finishes the RB14 last year somehow. They also brought in Jordan Mason, which is never a good sign when they start to bring in another running back. He only had 5 touchdowns last year, and now they're under a rookie QB. This also could be another split backfield, and Aaron Jones is 30 years old. Obviously, he still is the RB1, but I'm not sure for how much longer. But that brings us into the F tier. And I have 3 guys in this tier. And the first guy we have in the F tier is Isaiah Pacheco. He got injured last year and finishes the RB64. When he came back, he just looked like a shell of his former self. Kareem Hunt was stealing a lot of his touchdown work, and that's just not what you want to see. Rashid Rice is suspended for the first 6 weeks, so that definitely could be a better play for Pacheco, but the Chiefs won't be in such a cakewalk, so they can't rely on the run as much as they did. I still do feel like he can easily bounce up the rankings if he plays well, but it's always concerning when a player comes back from injury and is just not as good. And here's another guy who I'm just not taking yet this year. Jaylen Warren is still there, and he's going to be using the passing game over Caleb Johnson. Johnson's still a rookie, and I expect him to get a pretty light workload being the RB2. This Steelers offense is not as good as the Jets offense, so I expect Rodgers to struggle. That struggle will also hurt Johnson. He could see some goal line work, but he's not going to be a 3-down back. I do definitely like him as a dynasty play though. And the last guy we have on the list is Joe Mixon. If you have this guy, I'm sorry, but you're cooked. The Texans can't even guarantee this guy will play in 2025. Who even knows when he'll come back? Along with his chance of re-injury is really high. Not to mention that Texans O-line is really bad, and by the time his injury heals, he might just not be in shape for the NFL, and we'll have to take a few weeks just conditioning. But yeah, that wraps up the list, guys. Let me know what you would change. Let me know who's your RB1 going into the season. But yeah, thanks for watching.